This is The Speaking Show. I'm David Newman, and you're tuned in to the #1 podcast for speakers, consultants, and experts who want to speak more profitably. Are you ready to achieve your next big thing? Well, I've got the right man. We are here with Ed Wallace, president of the human capital practice at Achieve Next, achievenext.com. Hey there, Ed. Great to have you on The Speaking Show.
Great to see you, David. I really appreciate the chance to spend some time with you and all of your millions of followers.
Zillions. We're up to zillions now. It's crazy around here. So thank you. Well, you and I go way back, at least 12 years, right? 12, 13, 14 years, something like that. I have a soft copy, original, probably signed copy of your very first book, From Fairs to Friends. So your expertise, your whole domain is relational capital and building business relationships for sales leaders and for corporate leaders. Talk about how you came to that expertise, maybe starting with that first book, but just what was your professional journey and some milestones along the way?
Well, hey, David, I really appreciate you calling a comic book a real book. But my first book was Fairs to Friends. And I was the VP of sales for a company called Vertex for many years. And on August 26, 2005, my 8-year-old son fell off a skateboard. And I was working at that position at that time. And he had to be medevaced to the Children's Hospital here in Philadelphia. And that was a very traumatic afternoon for everybody. And he's fine today. He's a college baseball player, so I'll take the drama out of it for you. But that was the triggering event that told me, hey, if that can happen to an 8-year-old and it can turn a family into turmoil for quite a while, he had a severe concussion, when are you going to do what you really, really, really want to do? And what I really wanted to do was develop a company where we help train sales professionals, high potentials in corporations, senior leaders on how to build better business relationships. And I picked relational capital because the only thing I was really good at was relationships. And there really wasn't anything out there because I had been through all the sales training programs. I've been through all the Covey development programs. There really wasn't anybody out there talking about a process and methodology for prioritizing, measuring, and advancing business relationships. So we came up with this really great niche, and I realized I needed some IP. So I wrote a few books, and the third book, Business Relationships That Last, is really the one that got us into major corporations and started me traveling all around the world. So that's a quick synopsis of the journey.
And it's so funny that you say this about having a system and having a methodology for building relationships, because I know that either in book 2 or in book 3, the Business Relationships That Last, you have a very systematic sort of 5-step ladder that you take people through. So, folks listening might be like, well, I'm not a people person, or I'm not good at networking. I don't like meeting new people. And they have all these self-limiting beliefs. As soon as you externalize it and say, listen, there's 5 steps that no matter what your personality, no matter what your preferences, no matter how you're wired, there are ways that you can build relationships that will advance your career, advance your business, help you sell more, help you be more liked and be raised, praised, and promoted in your job and all these other things. Can you walk us through really quickly that 5-step ladder model?
Sure. So the ladder is our methodology. It's called the relational ladder. And it's a way to take an acquaintance to a peer to an advisor relationship. So there's only 3 dimensions to the ladder. And I get asked a lot of times, David, about, well, isn't a process for relationships a bit of a manipulation? And when I was writing and researching, I started thinking, well, is it? And it struck me, well, we have processes for everything in life. You had a process when you woke up this morning. We have a process for buying a car. We have a process for, manufacturing certain things. And there's a process for everything. And we really do go through a process for relationships. I just wrote it down. I think that's the only difference. And I put it in the form of a ladder because, we want to advance up, and a ladder shows advancement, aspiration, but you can also fall down in a relationship. You can also fall down off a ladder. So that's why the ladder is the model. It's been publicized far and wide. And there's 5 steps, very simple steps. First thing is establishing common ground. And we do that professionally. We do that personally. We have to find something in common and build credibility, because until you're deemed believable or credible, it's a one-way relationship. So the first rung, if you had a picture of the ladder in front of you, David, the ladder tapers, and the bottom rung is the widest rung because it takes the most time, because it's all on us at that point. We have to get on the ladder. I don't think anyone, when you crawled up a ladder, David, has anyone ever lifted you onto the ladder?
No.
No, you have to take that first step. So, and again, for some of us who are a little less networking, centric, you might be a little more process centric. So, you may not aggregate relationships like David and I do, but you need a few good ones. So we've got to take that first step, and that's the first step on the ladder. Now, once we find something in common, now it becomes a mutual relationship. So two people are going to make commitments to each other, like set up a meeting or introduce you to other people or whatever that is. And that's what we call that displaying integrity and trust. So the second rung is displaying integrity and trust. And that's when you really start entering into a little bit of a business peer relationship. Not employer and employee, but two business people, not buyer and seller, two business people starting a relationship to work on something that they have in common. And if you define relationship, it's two people coming together around something in common. Pretty simple, but we never really take a step back and think about these definitions. The other thing peers do, the third rung, is they use time effectively. In an average, I'll use sales as an example here. The effective meetings people did some research on sales meetings. And if you're in sales and you have a 1-hour meeting with a prospect or a customer, David, just take a guess at how much meaningful time the customer thinks they get from that hour in minutes. How much do you think meaningful time they surveyed and came back and said we get in a meaningful way? Try 6 minutes. So for every 60-second sales call, or let's say you're running a meeting at a company, it's about the same. Companies are in the meeting business, yet they're terrible at meetings. So the third rung is all about, we call it using time purposefully. And literally, we talk about a 3-step process for when you're going to have a meeting with somebody. Because now your peers, time should not be a cost, it should be an investment together. So the third step is all about having great meetings. The fourth step is offering, and the fifth step is asking for help. We don't offer help when we first meet someone because they're still trying to get past the gel in your hair. They're trying to get past your glasses, David, or whatever. They're assessing us emotionally. We are helping along the way as we go up the ladder, but these are big offers and big requests for help. So, and that's when you enter the advisor dimension. If I had a picture of the ladder in front of me, David, I'd say you should always have 10 or 15% of your ladder new people coming in, 75, 80 in that middle part of the ladder, professional peer. That's where stuff gets done. And career spanning relationships like the one we have. I mean, I should have mentioned earlier, you were my very first speaking coach. So if I sound terrible today, it's all your fault. No, you really helped me. You launched me. You gave me confidence. I've recommended you to other people. You know that over the years. I was good at speaking in a sales meeting. I wasn't good at speaking in front of a room. And you really gave me some great pointers. So an unabashed promotion there for you, David. I know you didn't.
Thank you.
And again, I view you as one of those respected advisors. We can go years and not connect like we are today, and no time has passed. So that's the ladder. As you go near the top, you build what we call relational capital gains. And what's a relational capital gain? When you're meeting with a customer, they give you extra meeting time. Really simple behavioral stuff. The customer shares a strategy or a confidence with you. They tell you something personally about themselves that they haven't told the people that report to them. You get an introduction without asking for it. So all that stuff's in the business relationships that last, but those are some of the behaviors that indicate to you that, hey, people are responding to you.
Right. Yeah, totally amazing. Thank you for that summary. And people they need to buy all your books, I think. Just, total unbiased recommendation. Get business relationships that last. Get the comic book. That book is still for sale though, right? Fairs to Friends?
Yeah, Fairs to Friends is still out there. Business relationships that last. I'd recommend that one. And then the latest one went to #1 for a few weeks. Is the Relationship Engine.
Hey, good looking. Are you currently getting paid to speak? Would you like to ramp that up? We can help. Book a confidential speaker strategy call with our team at doitmarketing.com/call, and let's see what we might do together. The call is free, but the results may be priceless. Yeah, talk about some of the innovations, because I got to tell you, Business Relationships That Last, I have it on this bookshelf right behind me. Very thorough, very complete. And, you kind of think, okay, I sort of wrote all that I'm going to write about this topic, and I put all the juice into that book. And then you come out with this fantastic latest book that came out a couple years ago. What were some of the new wrinkles or innovations, or what new angles are in the relationship engine based on your client work, based on your research, based on some of the work since the third book came out?
Well, there's an interesting backstory there, David. I had no intention to write another book because, as you know, if you're going to write the book yourself, and I write all the books myself, I kind of pat myself on the back for that. I don't use ghostwriters or anything. It's 1,200 hours. So I was not ready. I was not in any position. The business was doing well. And again, most of our business was focused on sales and customer relationships. And then we would have customers hire us and they said, well, you can make the same concepts work for leadership. So we were getting along just fine. HarperCollins approached me about writing a book on leadership. And I said, well, yeah, I don't want my wife, Laurie, closing the laptop at 3 a.m. while I'm sleeping in bed with it on my lap. And you know that, David. And they said, no, we really think there's a market for your concepts from a leadership perspective. I said, well, what's my book about? And they said, it's about thoughtfulness in business. And they really hooked me with that. They really hooked me into another 1,200 hours of sleepless nights, right? And what's interesting, people who publish books, they try to sell books. I mean, that's the business they're in. I don't necessarily try to sell books. I try to sell training and coaching and those kind of things. So I figure, okay, we go with the flow here. They know how to sell books. So, we start playing around with the title once the manuscript was finished. And they said, well, we came up with the relationship engine. I was like, relationship engine? I was thinking like the principle of worthy intent. The book is about thoughtfulness, and we call that worthy intent. So I was like downtrodden when the editor's telling me, hey, it's the relationship engine. And I said, I don't write about cars or motors. I said, it's all about 5 principles of relational leadership. He said, well, your first principle, displaying worthy intent, is the relationship engine. Nothing happens without it. And the book stayed #1 for 2 weeks on Amazon. And, I even was ahead of Peter Senge there for quite a while, which I was pretty proud of. I took pictures of it. So the bottom line is there are principles that go into every business relationship. The first one is displaying worthy intent. And that is not having good intentions. It's actually observing behaviors from customers and colleagues that tell you that they get your good intentions. And without that principle, the other 4 don't work. I'll go through them for you. The second principle is caring about people's goals, passions, and struggles. We believe that if you can understand the other person's relational GPS, their business and personal goals, their causes or passions, things they care deeply about in life, and or their struggles, you can advance any relationship, whether it's generational, cultural, whether you're on different continents, different political parties even. If you understand somebody's GPS, there's a good chance you can do something with the relationship. So that's the second principle. The third is making every single interaction matter. So, I got on this podcast today and I'm dialed right in. And this is my time with David. And I try to make it a point that whenever I'm engaged in any way, even if it's following up, I did a speech last week. I got 132 LinkedIn invites from the speech. That's probably a record. And I'm making sure I write a note to every single person. I'm not just clicking accept. So how do we make every interaction matter? Well, we just make them matter. That's the third principle. The fourth principle is value people before you value processes. Because a lot of times, if you think about our cable companies and the way they serve us, that's valuing process before people. Well, we're talking about value people before process. And the fifth principle is what I'm all about, is connecting performance to a purpose. And, we have a very short dash between the year we were born and whenever that expiration year is. How are we living a purposeful life within that dash? How are we investing our dash? So those are the 5 principles. You didn't ask that question, but I just kind of went there.
No, really, really great. Well, let me ask you this, because you mentioned about LinkedIn, you mentioned about lead generation, you gave this great speech, and you got 132 LinkedIn connections. When it comes to prospecting, let's kind of zoom out a little bit on that topic. Comes to prospecting, everyone says, Oh, yeah, you got to build relationship. You got to build trust. And here's how it works typically. And you've been the victim of this, I know, because we've all been the victim of this. Someone reaches out to you on LinkedIn. Hey, Ed, came across your profile, would love to connect with you and blah, 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 blah. Not knowing any better. And of course, you know better, but not knowing any better, someone like me is like, oh, okay. And then immediately the very next thing, hey, let's talk about your phone system. Hey, let's talk about, do you need some coaching? Hey, can I sell you my thing? Nobody understands that relationships take time. So when you're out there prospecting for Achieve Next, when you're building the relationships, new relationships, that 15, 20% that you talked about, what are some of the relationship building initial steps where you're adding value, you're offering value, you're inviting engagement, you're not rushing to the sale, you're not cramming your virtual business card into their virtual hand? How do we slow down to go faster?
Well, I think it's best if I describe what my business development director does. He's excellent at this. I've learned from him. I'll give you an example. I was doing a program in Las Vegas right before everything closed. So I was there the week before, and I had 70 technical salespeople in a room. And I asked them, I said, how many of you have a LinkedIn profile? I said, stand up. The whole room stood up. I said, how many have your picture on the LinkedIn profile? About 7 people remained standing. So I made my point, and I said, do you understand that, number one, the buyers today are more in the millennial category than they are in the baby boomer or the Gen X category? Where's the first place they go, David, when you reach out to them or they hear about you? Where do they go?
They go to Facebook
and LinkedIn, right?
LinkedIn.
So they're looking you up electronically. So staying with the LinkedIn theme, I said, what are you doing on LinkedIn? Well, I connect, I follow, I said, number one, are you contributing anything to the community? Which I think is where you were going. And, well, what do you mean? I said, well, interesting things come through your email every day on your industry. Now, some of it's not very good, and some of it is worth sharing. I'm not saying, write stuff and blog stuff and all the things that take time and you're in sales or you're like, what kind of electronic profile, digital profile are you creating for yourself? So I think it starts with thinking about we talk about Max the taxi cab driver in all of my books and all my keynotes, and I have his London cab right here. So, this guy created a competitor-proof experience in a taxi cab right around where we both live, David, right? And again, 100,000 people have heard me tell the Max story. I won't tell the story right now. The fact of the matter is, he left no stone unturned. He was the foundation of all these principles and everything that I developed. And if he had a LinkedIn page, I guarantee you he would be posting on there something interesting about travel in Philadelphia or what commuting time is like. Nothing that markets what he actually does. So I think the first thing is we have to think about a give to get. I'm servicing the community that I'm creating. I'm connecting with people. I'm not soliciting on LinkedIn. I think that's probably one of the rules that I would. And so what does John White, my guy, do? Okay. John does these little 60-second videos, and he's in a t-shirt in his home office, and he's so sincere. Hi, this is John White. I just want to connect you about something I heard. I was talking to 3 VPs of sales yesterday, and he shares something of value to the audience. So you ask me what I do. I post his stuff. And I also post other things. So if we're using LinkedIn to subtly get a lead, that's probably not the way to go. But John, what happens with John is people link in with him. And that's when he reaches out to them and says, hey, I was looking at your profile and, you know what I do. Is it worthwhile for us to have a conversation? That's, I think, is a really good approach. I hope that put some color commentary around your question.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. So just to be clear, post valuable content, be a person of interest. You don't need to write it. but curate and share and commentate perhaps on some things like this, or post an original 60-second video about some trends or experience or some expertise that you just recently learned that you'd like to share. People then link in with you. So it's kind of an inbound LinkedIn strategy more than an outbound. But then when he accepts, he says, well, I'm assuming you've looked at my profile. I've taken a quick look at your profile. Do you think it makes sense for us to connect? And that conversation, just to be clear, Ed, that is truly an exploratory conversation that's at rung number one of the ladder, correct?
Launching the relationship. That's all it is. In fact,
it's not a sales conversation. It's not a hidden sales conversation. It's let me get to know this person who expressed some interest in connecting with me.
Yes, David, you summarized it beautifully. And it's not every single invitation you get.
They look interesting to him.
Exactly. And I think the other thing is, video and pictures, right? That's what gets attention on these sites, not text.
Yes.
Not long paragraphs, but videos and pictures. And John just does a great job. I mean, if you want to check out, I'm promoting my sales guy, right? John White's YouTube channel, John White on YouTube. It's really good stuff out there. And, we actually use it in our sales training. We'll actually have people go out and check out his channel. And people are like, well, I don't really look good on video. Guess what? Just be yourself. Authenticity, be yourself, everybody else is taken. And the minute, we worry about the dog barking in the background, we have all the excuses today to be as authentic as we want to be. And have some kind of cadence to your follow-up. We have a customer, they have what they call an outreach cadence. It's called the 5734 outreach cadence. 5 to 7 touches over 3 to 4 weeks, right? So once you have a database of qualified candidates, so in our case, VPs of sales, companies 100 million to $2 or $3 billion, although we have Dow Chemical and some really big companies, but that's our sweet spot. Sales teams with 40 to 50 to 70 people, you can actually find those people, right? So have meaningful cadence with them. So 5 to 7 touches over 3 to 4 weeks, mix it with a meaningful email, a video, maybe something you might want to repost to that person. By the way, people are answering their phones today. The challenge is getting the cell phone number, right? Because they're not answering their corporate phones because they're not at home.
Right. What a great episode. Wowza. Tell you what, if you want to ramp up your revenue as an expert who speaks professionally, you should really check out our free online training at doitmarketing.com/webinar. Well, I want to ask you just a couple of behind the scenes questions, and then I want to give people some ways to connect with you and get more Ed Wallace brilliance.
Sure.
You have done a masterful job in taking your intellectual property, and you've got assessments, you've got software, you've got tools, you've got licensing, you've got systems around it. Talk about, when did it go from the Ed Wallace show, right? Ed is the speaker, Ed is the consultant, Ed is running the workshops, to some of these more scalable distribution methods for your expertise. How did that start? And then where did it develop to?
Well, I read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad before I started this business. It's a longtime bestseller, and I guess that was maybe 2004, 2005. And in there, he said, if you're going to start a business, are you going to have a business or a practice? And a practice would be just Ed Wallace or just David Newman. And I think you opted the same thing. You opted to have a business. I opted to have a business. We wanted more moving parts. We wanted more action, that kind of stuff. So I think that's the first question you have to ask yourself. And it's not a bad thing to just be David Newman, right? I like David Newman a lot. He's a great person.
Thank you.
There's no reason it couldn't just be David Newman and not Do It Marketing, or David Newman would just be Do It Marketing. So I don't want to say there's one way. It depends on the lifestyle you're looking for and your preference around that. So that's the first question. So we decided to have a business, and then we decided to just listen to what our customers wanted. Most of the stuff we developed, a customer asked about it. We talked to a couple other customers. We were small, we were nimble. And, one customer said, hey, it'd be great if I could score my relationships. I'm like, ooh, that's a great idea. So we invented RQ, and believe it or not, we own the trademark on RQ, if you could believe that. So it just got renewed for the next 5 years. So we've had that trademark for 15 years now, and it's a measure of your relational intelligence. We'll make an offer on that a little later on. And then that led to, okay, so you've got this assessment out there. You can measure things. How does it integrate with our CRM system and all those kind of things? So we came up with RQ for Salesforce.com, which is an app that works on a dashboard in a CRM system. And again, the more of that you do, the more valuable the data you can provide to your customers. So when we wrap up with a client engagement, we have what we call these 90-day accelerator programs. So if you're building a training business, you don't want long time cycles, right? We used to hope we could train for 6 months. 90 days we found is perfect. Right now we're doing 30 to 45-day accelerate virtual relationship programs. And they're 75-minute webinars of learning. So you got to align with the times. And now we can provide customers with metrics on pipeline versus relationship strength, and all those kind of correlations happen. So everything we did, David, other than my ideas about the cab driver and my journeys with Max and my son falling off a skateboard, a lot of it came just through interacting with people and seeing what they're looking for. And what we found is there's no process for relationships. We developed that. There's no real measurement. We developed that. And we've been drafting off that for a long time now. It's been going well.
What a great story. Well, Ed Wallace, this has been so fantastic. Tell people, how can they get connected and stay connected to more Ed Wallace brilliance, and where can we send them? We're going to put all the links right below this episode at thespeakingshow.com. But where can we send people?
Well, thank you, David. Well, hey, I don't know about brilliance, but I'll take it. I would link in with me, right? Link in with Ed Wallace. Pretty easy to find me out there. You could go to achievenext.com and you can check out our services there under the human capital practice. You can go to my licensing site, relationalcapitalgroup.com. And we have a whole library of free resources out there. That might be the best one to go to if you're just trying to get to know me. There's a bunch of my videos out there. David had a lot of influence on those videos. I think if you're interested in a free RQ assessment, just email me. It's free. It takes 15 minutes. You can determine how strong your key relationships are. So ed.wallace@achievenext.com. Like, what are you looking to achieve next? And again, if you're interested in a PDF copy of one of my books, email me directly on that too. I don't want to just send out 5,000 PDFs. If you're that interested, you want to read it, be happy to provide that. So hope that helps, David.
Thank you. Well, Ed Wallace, you're a rock star. We have to have you back on the show. We always have my favorite people back and catch up and check in with your adventures. Completely awesome value that you shared with us today. Thank you.
David, always a pleasure. And I'm honored to be on your program and to help you with all of your great constituents out there. You've done an amazing job with your business. I'm proud of you.
Thank you so much. Well, that wraps up another episode of The Speaking Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on iTunes. Subscribe. Tell a friend. Go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thespeakingshow.com. See you next time.